I get a lot of people asking me how we were blessed to walk away from corporate America in our early 30s. Well, listen, I don't want to keep that a secret. I want to share it with the world. And so maybe you're listening to this podcast and you're trying to figure out, how do I even get started on my journey of entrepreneurship and getting to a level of freedom? Well, text the word freedom to 737-777 9909. Enter your information in, and we look forward to sharing some information with you. A proven system with small overhead, right? That you can do part-time, spare time, right from the comfort of your home, and have amazing mentors, coaches, and a community of entrepreneurs who are willing to support you and help you on your journey to freedom. Welcome to Code Freedom. I'm your host, Eddie Bales. Have you ever felt stuck? Have you ever felt like there's got to be more than life than the reality that you see every day? Tune in weekly, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays as we crack the codes to freedom in every area of your life. Welcome to Code Freedom. This is your host, Eddie Bales, and this is episode 141. And I'm really excited today because I have family on the podcast. First time having family. What is this? 141 episodes, not even a year in, almost a year. And finally have some family on. And it's exciting to have my older brother, Chris Hulett, and his son, my nephew, Jayden Hulett. And so what we're going to talk about today, well, hey, y'all want to say anything? Welcome to the podcast, y'all.
Thank you for having us. I gotta say this before we start. 100 and how many episodes?
41.
141 episodes, man. I'm proud of you, bro. Like, that's a big thing.
I appreciate that.
That's not a small task. 141 episodes.
Thank you. It's hard work. I didn't know it was going to be as much work as it is, but I just want to give more value. I feel like I have so much to give, and it'd be a shame for me to keep it all locked in. So I just want to release it to the world. So, and I'm glad you guys are here with me to share even more value. Right. And so what we're talking about is how to make sure our 2022 doesn't end up like 2021. And some of that is our behaviors. It's things that you asked me a minute ago what I think our behaviors. And really, I don't even know if I could regurgitate it the same way that I said it because it was right off the cuff. But I said something to the extent of, we do certain things based on triggers and feelings and how we were brought up and things we saw, things we felt, things that have happened in our lives, and those cause certain behaviors in us to do certain things a certain way based on reactions to certain things that are happening to us. And so what we want to do is find some ways today how we can break some of those behaviors in our lives so that we don't end up operating in the same way in 2022, because to be honest with you, one behavior leads to another behavior, which leads to another behavior. And next thing you know, we can be in a spiral going in the wrong direction. And we want to be empowering, not disempowering. So I want to start with my brother here because he's got a special background that kind of leans more towards some of these things, this topic that I think can really serve us in a great way. So kind of tell them what your background is so that they understand who you are and why you're qualified to talk about this.
I've been a nurse for several years now, and I started out in behavioral health. I worked with patients who were ill with psychiatric problems. And one of the things that I came to realize is a lot of our actions are driven by behaviors. And to take what you said a step further, when you said that we're triggered by different events and we can go into this spiral and just one behavior following another, I like to think that everything that we do is a behavior, from our morning ritual when we wake up in the morning and the way we start our day, from getting out of the bed, going to the bathroom, brushing our teeth. All of those are behaviors. And if you look at all of the things that we do as a behavior, then you kind of have the understanding that you can change those behaviors. And once you realize that you can change your behaviors through practice, there's not much that you can accomplish. And I think that's one of the great things that we could bring into 2022 is the knowledge that if there's something going wrong in our lives, or if there's something about the way that our life is going that we don't like, we have the ability to change that.
Yeah, I'm just curious, and any of you can jump in on this one because I just kind of had a thought while you were talking. Is there a difference between behaviors and habits? Like that one, I can't even really give an answer to, in all honesty.
I think a behavior is a habit. Once you do something so many times, that's a habit.
Hmm.
And what is a behavior if not something that we've learned and we've executed time after time? Let me give you an example. There was a time in my life when I said that I couldn't remember names, and my memory was bad. And remember, a habit is something you repeat over and over. So every time I said I got a bad memory, I was reinforcing that behavior, and I had a bad memory. I couldn't remember because I was practicing having a bad memory. One of the things that really clicked for me when I understood this process of habit forming and behaviors is that once you realize that you can make the change and it's not something that you own, you don't own a bad behavior, you don't own a bad memory. Once you realize that it's something that you can change, the floodgates open up, and all you have to do is practice that change until you see the results that you're looking for.
Absolutely. One of my mentors, he has this saying, and I love it. He says, "If it has been done, it can be done, and if it can be done, it can be done by you." And the whole goal of this podcast is that we're not victims, but we are victors, right? And in order for that to happen, we get to decide, we get to change, we get to be authors of our own lives instead of letting someone else. That's part of freedom, is not letting someone else dictate our lives, but we get to dictate it. So Jayden, anything you want to share as it relates to behaviors?
Um, I guess more along the lines of I do agree with what my dad said completely in terms of if you practice something habitually that can become it forms as a behavior. So I guess the best way for people to actually break out of the chains of whether it be the rat race or just common everyday things that they may not want to do or may not like that they do is just by practicing something in the morning as little as just saying it out loud or just looking at yourself in the mirror and just I won't do this today or I'm going to have a great day today. I'm going to smile today. Just little things like that can really make a huge difference in someone's life.
Wow, it's so interesting you said that because you just reminded me of a video I watched earlier, and it was this kid and he was running up this thing, those little slopes that you could run up and you got to try to grab the top of it. They have them at like the bounce places, the trampoline parks. They usually have them, and he ran up 3-4 times and couldn't get up, and then he had him come over and sit him down, and he had him start reciting affirmations, and he had him visualize himself running up the thing and getting over it. I got to show you guys the video. I think I saved it. But after he did that exercise with him, the kid got it done. He went over the wall, and I think that's interesting because what the father's doing is he's creating a positive behavior in his son, so that anytime he runs into an obstacle, he knows exactly what to do. He knows to affirm. He knows to visualize, and he can go out there and get it done. It's not anything he can't do. He just has to find a way.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the biggest things that hold us back in general in life is just that belief that you can do it. So often we say, well, we can't do it. I can't do this, or I'm not this. We can do whatever we want to do. But what happens is we put our own barriers in our way. And once you give up, it'll never happen. As long as you continue to strive for what it is that you want to do, you can make it happen. You just have to change the method. It took Thomas Edison 10,000 tries to develop the light bulb. Now, he didn't do it alone. I know there's a lot of people who say Thomas Edison did really invent the light bulb, but he saw the vision of the inventor that he brought on to help him with this light bulb invention. They later went into business. And if you look around us, we couldn't imagine this world without light, living by candle lights. It's the mind is an amazing thing. And as long as we have that understanding that we can do something, whatever it is that we put our minds to, it eventually and inevitably it will happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, we are like, I'm just curious, what kind of behaviors do you guys have? Just random behaviors. I mean, I'll give you some of mine. Like, one of the things that I do religiously is at night I plug up my phones. I charge everything, right? Because I want to wake up and be at 100%, right? And it's interesting because, like, I'll notice, you know, my other nephew, he often doesn't even know where his phone is at, and if I don't charge it, it's not going to be charged, right? So I've noticed that that's a habit of mine. Even my wife, she doesn't like always have to charge it unless it's at 2%. But me, it's just a thing. Like, you take your stuff out your pockets, you put it on the counter, right? You charge your phones up. Like, we have these rituals or certain things that we do when we wake up. We have certain rituals that we follow, and those are behaviors. And I think, you know, one thing I would suggest that we all do is write down behaviors that we'd like to have. You know, like, whatever your behaviors are, what do you want to have going into 22? Like, do you want to be a better saver? Do you want to be someone who, you know, visualizes or says affirmations, or, you know, certain things you just want to incorporate in your life? And I think if you start to identify the behaviors you want to have, then you can make great progress. What do you guys think about that?
No, I definitely agree with that. I would say personally for me, every day I try and wake up and I try and, read my Bible a little bit, try and go out and talk to God. And I've noticed that the more that I do that, it's almost like a sort of meditation for me. And the more I do that, the more at peace I feel, the more things don't bother me. Stress isn't really a problem in my life, and it's just something that I've learned to really love doing by myself.
So your morning ritual gives you the empowerment to make it through your day in a good state of mind and stay positive.
Hmm.
That's deep. I think for me as a dad, I get to step outside of myself and see my behaviors. Sometimes we don't actually notice that we're stuck in a cycle of doing things one way, be it positive or negative, but a lot more often these are negative behaviors we have. So I definitely agree 100%, and we should write down the behaviors that we would like, the things that we would like to accomplish. But we also have to look introspectively at our behaviors and see where they've gotten us. So, Jayden, with you, I get to look at myself over the years because you are a representation of me. When you were growing up as a little kid, you listened to what I told you as a parent. You heard what I spoke to you. But even more importantly, you picked up on everything that was unsaid, be it my mood, be it how I moved, the things that I did, everything you saw, you recorded. And regardless of whether you know it or not, your behaviors today are a reflection of that.
Hmm.
You took all of that in, and now you externalize that in your actions, and we all do it. And Eddie, that's sort of like you were talking about the daughter who chopped the ends of the ham off, but she didn't know why. Went back to her mom who chopped the ends of the ham off. She didn't know why. Went back to her mom, who was the great grandmother to the daughter of the mom, and she explained why she chopped the ends of the ham off because she didn't have a pan that was big enough to fit the whole ham.
Right.
So we move through life doing a lot of things that we don't even understand. And it's not just when we talk about behaviors, these behaviors drive who we are. Let's take it a step further and look at things that are detrimental to us, because I think that's one of the biggest things. If you want to think positively about where you'll be in 2022 and move positively in that direction, we should take a look at the things that negatively affect us. And let me give you an awesome example. Anxiety, for example. A lot of us deal with anxiety. A lot of us deal with the fear of the unknown. We deal with these feelings inside of us that we can't seem to get past. But one of the things that I want everyone to understand is anxiety is not a disease, it's a symptom. It's a symptom of something that's going on inside of us that we haven't been able to figure out yet. We take medication to deal with anxiety, we take medication to deal with depression. However, what if we could change our behaviors to deal with our anxiety and depression? So that's my positive look forward into 2022. Let's adjust our behaviors so that we could deal with some of the negativity that we feel and be more positive about us moving forward. Affirmations are awesome. Affirmations become reality when we change our behaviors and how we feel about ourselves through our behavior change to manifest those affirmations and to manifest our dreams.
Wow, that's good. And you made me think about something too. Like I talked about making a list of what behaviors we want to have, but I think we also should write a list of the behaviors that we feel we already have. Like what behaviors that we don't like that don't serve us well. And then another thing is what if we started to write down the behaviors of maybe our parents? Like what if we saw a behavior in our parents and we started to adopt those behaviors? I mean, this can get really, really deep if you really look at like yourself and start to look at people around you and say, hey, that's why I do that because I saw my mom do that or I saw my dad do that. And I don't even know why I do that because I don't want to do that. And then you can start writing a list of those types of things. And then we can start to make those adjustments. So when the trigger comes, we can say, wait a minute, I'm not going to allow this behavior to happen. I'm going to shift the narrative. But you can only do that once you identify what those behaviors are.
That's deep. I've in the past struggled with procrastination and completing tasks. And I had to reflect on my history and where did this behavior come from? Why is it so difficult for me to complete a task? And I thought back to my childhood and I looked at my upbringing. So back in 1977, 78, somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s, the sink stopped working in my grandmother's house. And we started using the bathtub to wash our hands and brush our teeth instead of the sink in the bathroom. Now, we could have easily had the sink fixed. It was just a leak, but it never happened. So over 40 years later, in 2021, about to go into 2022, the sink still does not work. And this was indicative of a lot of things that I saw growing up. The light in the kitchen stopped working. There was an overhead light, a fluorescent light in the kitchen at my grandmother's house. That light stopped working. My grandmother put a lamp on the table, and that's what we used in the kitchen from the moment that it stopped working back in the late 80s, 2021. That light still doesn't work. So that kind of set the precedent or set the stage for my behavior moving forward. I didn't see progress in a positive fashion. I didn't see tasks being completed. I didn't see obstacles being overcome. And in return, I developed into a person who didn't complete tasks, who didn't know how to maneuver around obstacles. And I passed some of that on to my offspring as well. So it's very important for us to identify these behaviors, these negative behaviors, so that we can change the cycle, not only for us, but for me, for my children, so that they can have a more productive life and manifest the dreams that they would like to see come into fruition.
Wow, it's interesting because I remember the bathtub, washing our hands in the bathtub, and I remember the light, the fluorescent light, and all of that. And you're so right. We get to change it because otherwise it gets repeated by our generations to come, and
Right.
and so it behooves us. And some of this is subconscious too, because I think somewhere in this the subconscious has to be there because a behavior is a habit, but a lot of times a habit is formed is so deeply embedded that it becomes something you don't even think about, and then it just becomes what we do, and it becomes who we are, and we get to change that. So, I do want to throw it back over to you too, because you talked about like some things that you do at work and things like that. I'm just curious, like maybe some things that you've seen just working in nursing and medicine and things of that nature. Well, I'll say this: you talked about how we use medication for anxiety and depression and things like that. And by the way, in no means am I saying that you should not take anxiety medicine or depression medicine if that's what your doctor prescribed. But I am saying that sometimes it could be a band-aid to something deeper
Absolutely.
that we need to really deal with and look inside, not just taking the medicine, taking the pill, but why do I do it? Not
Mhm.
just take this medicine and I feel better, hopefully, but why do I do this? Maybe you can kind of speak to some of those things.
Sure. And I concur with you with the medication. Don't stop taking medication because you heard, oh, well, medication isn't going to help you overcome anxiety. What it is, though, is a way to move us forward. It's medication that I believe can help us bridge the gap until we develop the tools to deal with whatever it is that's causing the anxiety or depression. For example, I've dealt with ADHD for my entire life. And once I started taking medication, I realized, oh, this is great. I can actually function. I can read a book. I can I can concentrate and focus on a task that I need to complete. The problem is the medication also does damage to your body as well. So I've got high blood pressure, and the medication for ADHD increases your blood pressure. It's a stimulant. So it's something that early on I felt like I would need to find a way out of. I would need to find a way around taking the medication. And that is making behavioral changes so that I can overcome those symptoms of the lack of focus. So we need to develop the tools to address the issues, and that's the best way to move forward. But first we have to identify what those are. So just to give you an example of one of the things for me, if I read a book that's interesting, I can read the book from cover to cover in one night. If I read a textbook of something that has actually no interest to me at all, I'll be sitting there reading that book for 6 hours and I'll be on the same page and won't remember anything that I read on that page. Now, people who don't suffer from ADHD have difficulty with things that don't interest them as well. The thing is, when you got ADHD, those things are amplified. So I can't sit in the classroom and take a test if there's something going on the side of me because my mind will wander and pull me there, and I won't be able to pull myself back into that test that I'm trying to take. So one of the tools that I developed for reading passages that didn't interest me was to speed it up. I needed to develop a tool to help me overcome that. So instead of reading slow like this, I speed it up and I read as fast as I can and taught myself to speed read so I could get past that. And now my mind is engaged enough to keep me interested in what I'm reading because of the tool that I developed to get past it. And so it's like that with a lot of things that we do and a lot of the behaviors that we fall into that cause mental illness. We need to find out what tools we can use to overcome those setbacks, and that will help us move forward and move past the medication, because medication is only, like you said, Eddie, it's only a band-aid. It's not something that we want to continue for a long term.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you said another interesting word, the word tools. I think another great tool is a therapist, right? Because a therapist can help us to dig deep and uncover, like peel back the onion layers and uncover some of those things, those hurts, those pains that we've experienced, and we don't even know why it's causing us to do things that we're doing right now. So I mean, this is deep, guys. I mean, when you really like look into it, like you mentioned in the beginning, everything we do is behaviors too, how we smile, how we laugh, what we do when we wake up, what we do when we go to bed, as I mentioned. I mean, we live our whole lives based on behaviors, and if we're going to go into 2022, it makes sense to identify some good behaviors that we want to have, but also identify the behaviors that don't serve us, and we start to find ways on how we can shift those behaviors.
What do you think, Jada? 2022 and behaviors.
From a personal standpoint, um, I would probably say, or at least for me, to really hone on in the things that I know I lack in, such as procrastination has always been a big thing for me. Um, so I kind of had to learn how to use it to my advantage, and I do it a lot in school. If I know I'm gonna push a project to the last minute, probably the night before, and I just learned to, once that time actually comes, just how to lock in and how to really be present in the moment so that I can actually get what I need to get done. Um, so I guess for 2022, that's going to be something that I really try and hone in on, is all my weaknesses, and try and look at them from an outside standpoint and see where can I improve here? What can I do better this year that I didn't do last year? How can I be better today than I wasn't yesterday or even an hour ago?
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably going to be what I focus most on this upcoming year.
Wow. Yeah, it's interesting that both of you guys mentioned procrastination because for me, I feel like I'm not as big on procrastination um, because I tend to really like to get things done. But I will say this, I do have a tendency to procrastinate on things that I feel like are tough, are hard. I'll put them off, like things that I don't really want to do, or I feel like I don't want to say I don't want to do, but I could think of at least three things right now that I need to do before the year's out that I should have been did, but I put them off because I feel like I even give you an example, something that maybe my wife wants me to do, and maybe she wants me to do it sooner than later, but if I feel like it's difficult or it's going to cause pain in a sense of not physical pain, but a sense of, you know, maybe I could think of an example. I'll give you a good example. So she's got these mirrors that she wants me to hang up, right? And the thing is, my wife has a tendency to be a bit of a perfectionist. And so if it's not at the right level and if it's not aligned perfectly and if it's all not lined up a certain way, then we're going to have to possibly repaint the wall and like because of the scratches and the holes and all that other stuff. So I tend to move away from that pain and just kind of push it off instead of handling and dealing with it. So like for me, procrastination, that's my area of procrastination, I would say. And I guess that the way to solve that is to just hit it head on. Like deal with it as soon as possible, even if it is painful, because the sooner that you deal with it, the quicker it goes away. The quicker you don't have to deal with it anymore. So I don't know. I just thought I'd share that because like I tend to be very productive in trying to get things done. But when it's something that is like that I know is going to be, ruffle feathers or just maybe it's a phone call that I don't really want to make. or maybe it's a task that I just feel like it's hard. I'll get everything else done, and then that thing I just tend to keep putting it off.
I think one of the important things there that I took from what you said is the ability to just get it done. I think in order to hone in on that ability to get it done, you have to practice it. So we're talking about changing behaviors for 2022. I think one of the biggest things that we're going to have to do as people who want to make these changes is actually practice it. And it's got to be practice on purpose. Like you have to actually identify what it is, the changes that you need to make, and you have to practice those changes and keep track of it, because all of those victories when you've gone out and you've actually put the work in to make changes, those are new habits that you're forming. And the goal for 2022 is to create new habits in the areas where you would like to be successful in life.
Absolutely. And, I don't know if there's any last comments you want to share, Jayden, but hey, go right ahead.
No, I don't think there's anything that I need to really touch on. I think you guys have really touched on everything that I was thinking.
Okay, good stuff. Well, I will say this. In this podcast, we've talked about habits, we've talked about paradigms, we talked about behaviors. Now, they are pretty much the same thing. Behaviors, paradigms, habits. They all are things that we perpetually do, and sometimes don't even realize that we're doing it. And sometimes it serves us well, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, if you're like Jaden, if you're like myself, if you're like others, you get up in the morning and you pray, and you have a sense of peace, then it's serving you well, right? And I'm not saying that's the only thing, but there are lots of things that you do that serve you well, but there are also lots of things that you may do that don't serve you well. And those are things that we need to identify. And how do you identify them? Sit down, grab a piece of paper. I always say writing crystallizes thought. So write things down on paper. Just sit down and just think about some things that you've done even in the last week. Maybe you snapped at your children or your spouse, or whatever. Or maybe there's a behavior at work that is not serving you well. Maybe there's a behavior in your personal life, your spiritual life, even your physical life. Maybe you stop working out. I don't know, whatever the behavior is that you want to fix. Identify those things, write them on a piece of paper, and then find some people who have that behavior that you want to emulate. Maybe find a therapist that can help you dig deep and figure out why. I mean, there's lots of different things we can do, but the goal is to identify it and to move past it. Anything else you want to add, Chris?
I think you said it all. It was a pleasure being here on your 141st episode, brother. I appreciate it, man, and I'm proud of you. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate that. And listen, I want you guys to connect with these two because they're doing some amazing things. And so, Jayden, how can people connect with you?
My main platform, I would say, is Instagram. So if you want to check me out on Instagram at the Jayden Hulett, that's with 2 T's. That'll be a great way for you to connect with me.
Definitely. And I'll put that in the show notes as well. And Chris, how can people connect with you?
Well, as you can see, I've got a son that's in this young generation that's all about the social media. So I'm going to have to refer to him for my Instagram. But while he's looking up my Instagram to tell you what it is, I'm going to tell you my Facebook is Chris Hulett.
And Instagram is chris.a.hulett.
All right. And the spelling will be in the show notes. That is Hulett, Hulett. It was a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, hey, this is episode 141 concluding. And hey, let's take it to another level in 2022. Appreciate you all. Take care. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate you guys for listening. Definitely feel free to take a screenshot of this episode, tag me in it on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you find me on social media. I would love to give you a shout out. Hey, you might even get a prize. Who knows? But Excited that you had a chance to take a listen. I hope you got a lot of value, and definitely feel free to give us 5 stars as well as a review. Show us some love, and we appreciate you. God bless you all, and see you all over the top.